Hey, it's Justin Harvey. Thanks for tuning in to the Anesthesia and Pain Management Success podcast. With APM Success, we take a close look at important topics pertaining to business, practice management, personal finance, and careers for anesthesiologists and pain management physicians. We work hard to take your critical questions straight to the experts. Thanks for listening. This is the third episode in our three-part series on estate planning, and I'm really grateful to Nathan and Notesong for joining and lending their expertise. Hopefully this series has been helpful and hasn't produced too much anxiety for you. I actually heard from a client this morning and they said, Justin, I'm interested in this topic, but I see this popping up, estate planning, on my podcast feed, and to be honest, I skipped it because I didn't want to deal with it. Hopefully that's not you, but perhaps you can take this mini-series as an encouragement to put some infrastructure in place in your life to care for your loved ones. Today is going to be a grab bag episode talking about estate planning and advanced topics and specific questions and case studies and some other questions that you want to be aware of and to address in the event that you want to do an estate plan and put one together in the near future. So this will be it for estate planning. Then we'll put death and dying on hold for the foreseeable future. As always, thanks for tuning in. Hello and welcome to episode 105, the third in our three-part series of estate planning. I'm here with Nathan and Notesong of Notesong and Nathan LLP, founders of thoughtfulwills.com, really innovative and forward-thinking estate planning service that is state agnostic, now doing many states in America. I'll have them describe for just a minute how their business works, and then we're going to do grab bag, hot seat, stump the estate planning attorney, important things to think about in your estate plan construction and implementation, specifically for physicians and high income professionals. So Nathan, Notesong, thanks for being here.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
So to kick us off, why don't you just describe the process? If somebody says, I want to do an estate plan with Notesong and Nathan, how does that actually work?
They reach out, right? So one of our big pieces is we're here. So if you have any questions, that's, I think the thing is people get nervous, and I think it makes sense because lawyers suck and they talk down to people. And so people think they have to do all this homework before they get ready, and then they can talk to the lawyer. So that at least that way they don't feel dumb. And we really kind of try to tell people to just reach out. So we'll meet with you by phone or video if you want, and we'll explain and answer the questions, talk through our services. We have a bunch of different sort of options, but really it's sort of, you pick what you want and you purchase like you would purchase anything else on the internet. It's sort of weird because, lawyers, it's usually there's retainers and there's all this sort of stuff. Ours is all kind of just like online stuff. Like you'd buy regular things from Amazon or Target, but better because we're lawyers. And then we send you a worksheet and we just, we're here. It's, I think that a big piece of what we've tried to do is sort of realizing that some people really don't like to deal with lawyers, even friendly lawyers that are maybe a little goofy. Some people just don't want to. And so we've sort of built a process that really does let you just go through it all on your own, but knowing that we're there watching, we're looking over your interview answers. And if we see that everything makes sense, we leave you alone. And that, again, we talked on our last episode about sort of the kindness. That's one of our kindnesses too, I think, as attorneys, is like, we don't require you to meet with us. You don't have to sit down and talk through stuff. We let you do it on your own, but knowing that we're there the whole time, kind of, I don't want it to sound big brotherish, like we're not, but we do. We watch every step of the way and we look over your documents and make sure they're all correct. And then we send them to you. And so it's really sort of choose your own adventure, but we're always on hand to talk to people.
And how are you able to do this in so many different states?
Well, we partner with local counsel attorneys in states where we're operating, and they're key to our success. I mean, they're key to our mission because we promise all of our clients that a licensed attorney, professional, is reviewing their documents to ensure that it comports with their state's laws. And there I go using a legal word, comport.
It's okay. It's okay.
But, just to make sure, you have to make sure that your estate plan follows the laws of your state. Each state has tiny little nuances. And if one of those is off, then that part of your will or trust or whatever document that we're working on for you could be deemed invalid. And so it's part of our process. It's something we promise to our clients.
So that leads me to the first of my list of questions here. What if I'm moving? So obviously, if you're a physician, you go to med school somewhere, you move across the country to go to residency, you move again for fellowship, maybe you move again for another fellowship. By the time you're done, you might have lived in 5 different states. First of all, does this matter? Second of all, do I need to update my estate plan along the way, or is it immediately invalid as soon as I go from residency to fellowship?
No, I think it maybe is no the right answer. It's not
There were a lot of
invalid.
questions built
I
in
know,
there.
I
Okay.
realized I was so excited because I never answer a question concisely. And so I was ready with this no. And then you asked more follow-up questions in that group. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, shoot. No, your plan is not invalid. Every state sort of honors documents that are sort of correctly executed and valid in the original state. So if I move, if I create my estate plan in Minnesota where I live right now, and I do it correctly, and then I move to California, California will honor those documents, even if the sort of rules of execution are slightly different in California. There are some sort of best practices, and we're willing to talk through it, not willing, that's the wrong word. We're happy to talk through those because, again, everything has a caveat. Durable powers of attorney do sort of vary from state to state. And the weird thing with durable powers of attorney is you're taking them to a bank. And banks are important, but they tend to be filled with stuffy bankers. And so if you bring your Minnesota durable power of attorney to a bank in California, they might look at it and be like, we don't know what this looks like. This isn't our form that we approve. So we do suggest that, sort of we'll look at it depending on, because many states have sort of adopted this sort of uniform. This is again one of those things. I had a simple answer, and now it's not simple. By and large, everything stays the same. There's some best practices, and we can talk through, but it depends which state you're coming from and moving to. But again, that's where we're here. We're really excited to sort of talk to our clients about that.
Are there any states? Let me just ask this directly. I know Louisiana is weird when it comes to the legal landscape.
Everything's weird.
So I know this is like very niche and only like 7 people probably listen to this podcast from Louisiana, but describe that situation. How does it impact estate planning?
Well, I mean, I just actually was communicating this morning about this weird executor or personal representative requirement in Florida, Kentucky, and Ohio. Those are all states that we operate in. So I know those wonky laws, we call them, weird. They're just weird, and they're ancient, and they don't take into account real life. But in those states, Kentucky, and Ohio, your executor and personal representative has to be a resident of that state. If they're not, the court will deem them invalid. They won't qualify. So what's the backup plan there? All of the other states have figured this out, and they realize, wow, people might be living in a state where they don't really have close family member or friends. And so there's a way to nominate somebody who is a resident to receive notice, like, okay, this person has died. You need to do these things so that representative can then notify the out-of-state executor or personal representative. But in Florida, they said, no, it has to be a resident. But what that doesn't take into account is so many variables decades from now, right? These documents, hopefully in our best wishes, aren't going to be operative. The will won't kick in because you're going to live for quite a long time after you draft them. So it doesn't take into account that the person who was a resident at the time that you drafted that in Florida might move, or you might move, in which case it completely just throws everybody and everything up in the air. So in those situations, then we'll counsel those clients and say, hey, here's the situation, it's your state's laws. But again, this is where you need a professional who's involved and understands the laws.
So if I've had clients move to Ohio or Kentucky or Florida, I need to review their estate plan to see if the executor that they have named is a resident of the state in which they now reside.
Well, it's something that you should definitely consider. I mean, let's say that I created, our estate plan in Wisconsin, and my husband and I moved to Florida, but our executors are based in Wisconsin, and I die in Florida, then that would not be valid under Florida law, right?
Well, no, it would go, it's sort of to the default plan. And I mean, there's always sort of a backup, right? If it did turn out that you moved to Florida and your executors weren't living in Florida, the court would nominate an executor. So it's not like your whole plan wouldn't fail. It's hard because that's the thing. It's like, oh no, you're fine. But that's the thing. It's like, and I think this is sort of the crux of like why, I mean, frankly, this is why we're here. And I think it's why we serve an important purpose in this sort of, because it's sort of that thing of like, why would you know that? Like you, and this is that part I think I want to sort of reassure like Justin and your listeners. It's like, you don't need to try to remember. Like, I don't want anybody's takeaway to be like, if I move to Kentucky or Florida or Ohio, then I should worry about my executors. Like, don't worry about that. Contact us if you move, right? And we'll say, where are you moving? And then we'll talk through it. So, I mean, I think, and that's why it's like, and the fun part, I mean, this is why Notesong and I think are like crazy nerds, because, and Notesong is like, Notesong loves to do a deep dive into the statutes. And you see that, like, or just heard it, because this is just audio and not video, but like her face lights up when she gets to talk through these things, and they are important. And but yeah, there's little nuances, but the truth still remains. If you move, you're good to go. You don't need to freak out. And you don't, and this is the other part too, that I think my worry is that so many people, especially physicians, are like, well, I might only be in this job for 3 years and then I'm going to move. And so maybe I should just wait until I get my forever job. And then I will do my estate plan. And that is not like, don't do that. Do it now. Yeah. Don't wait. Yeah. Louisiana.
Nathan just made a great point.
Oh, sorry. No, let's not talk about Louisiana. It's, okay. I love going there, but their laws come from the Napoleonic Code from France, and the rest of the country comes from English common law. So that's why it's not like, obviously, because many of us have been to Louisiana. It is not a foreign country. It's part of our country, and, legal tender and things mostly work, but it's all a little bit weird. And so we're excited. Someday we will be in Louisiana, but it will probably be the 50th state that we enter, just because it's wonky. And you love it for that reason, right? You love it because it's weird in a way that the rest of the country isn't.
I do love and appreciate Louisiana. For anybody listening in New Orleans right now, shout out.
We're going there in September again, and I can't wait.
Are?
Yeah, we are. I didn't tell you.
Beignets and Cafe du Monde.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So I want to make a quick plug. So Nathan said, you want to see Notesong's face light up when she's talking about an executor in Florida or whatever. So if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, Justin Harvey YouTube channel, check it out, subscribe. You'll get real time all the content as we push it out, as well as some other bonus videos and things. So check out the YouTube channel.
Are we going to be on YouTube with this?
If you want to be.
Oh, it's fine. I probably would have worn a cooler shirt, but that's okay.
Well, I'm wearing a t-shirt. Really nice. This is a safe place. I want to talk about life insurance ownership. So for the physician crowd who's probably using a living trust as part of their comprehensive estate plan, what does that mean in terms of life insurance, the owner for the policy and the beneficiary of the policy, and how do these ideas interact?
Well, life insurance is what we put under the umbrella of non-probate assets, but there's still an important consideration for estate planning because, and actually this was something I wanted to bring up with you anyway. We have a lot of clients that write in and say, okay, what do I do with my life insurance and my retirement plans? And we give them the speech, but the important thing about that is that you have the option of renaming the beneficiary in the name of your living trust. And what that does is it just, it points the assets from that life insurance into the trust. And then the trust details the way that you want everything distributed. The important thing there is that you want to make sure that you update that if anything in your life changes, because as we all know, life is fluid and things change and relationships change. And especially for folks who get divorced or maybe their kids turn rotten or something like that, like really, really, really bad. That would be really bad.
It happens.
It does. Those are one of those like tales from the trenches that, but the important thing is that you rename the primary beneficiary in the name of the trust. But we always do say, defer to your financial advisors or your financial counselors, because it really depends on where you are in your lifespan too. For example, we met with my mom's financial planners and asked if we should do that for her. And they said, because of where you and your sisters are in your lifespan and your mom, it's just going to be an extra step for you to have to put it into a trust. So we decided not to do that, but it really just, it's so case by case dependent. But again, those are deemed as non-probate assets. So yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's, again, going back to that idea of phase 1, phase 2, where phase 1 is sort of when you create the plan and where you want everything to go. Phase 2 is when we have those conversations about the assets, and we do talk about life insurance and retirement accounts, because and that's like Notesong said, there's never a one size fits all answer, because Notesong's mom is older. She has 3 daughters, and so it's like, anyways, the point is that it's never.
I know we're going down the if then.
I know, and it's not that. It's all good. There are different options. I mean, the key though is that, like, and I think I mentioned this in our when we were talking in the last podcast. It's like the worry is with life insurance, if you forget to update it and you get divorced and remarried, then bad things happen. So that's why we suggest that people actually just retitle it to sort of move the beneficiary to the trust, just as that way you have one less thing to worry about. But
I love the idea of having like a control center, like one place where you can change everything all at once, very efficient and streamlined, and that be the living trust. It just prevents you from forgetting something or missing something, or it's just one less form, or probably many less forms.
Well, and that's because I think, and that's the part where I think like people are busy, and I mean there are some people for like, and I know I'm sure you have clients like this. It's like some people's hobby is just managing their own assets and like watching it all. And we have those clients too that are like, well, I want to draft my own deed. And it's like, hey, if that's what you want to do this weekend, is like learn how to draft a quitclaim deed, go for it. But we have a lot of clients that are like, I'd rather watch my kids play in the park. How about you draft it? So then we just, there's lots that depending on how sort of deep in the trenches you want to be.
Are there any other either common mistakes that you've seen or costly mistakes that you've witnessed, things that haven't already been mentioned, but that either you've interacted with one of your clients, or maybe you're helping an executor, or maybe just something you've heard from a colleague about that you think for this cohort of listeners, high income physicians who probably have families and maybe businesses, that would be relevant for them?
Yeah. You go first, Notesong.
Oh, well, I was just thinking, whenever we're drafting the documents and we're talking with clients, even something as simple as naming legal guardians. Nathan and I always advise best practice, but for naming legal guardians, for example, a lot of folks will come to us and say, I want to name this husband and wife as co-legal guardians. And we always, talk to them about that, because that you could be setting your kids up for a legal custody battle, because there's no guarantees in life, and you don't know that couple is not going to stay together. And if your documents say that they go to co-guardians and that couple splits up, then those kids are going to get stuck in a custody battle. So always trying to, and that's the thing. I laugh, and I love the way Nathan put this, but he said, Notesong, we got professional degrees in worrying. And we do, right?
Yeah, I feel like I have one of those too, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I mean, you're a fiduciary, so you get it. But the thing is, it's just, we're trying to anticipate worst case scenarios. And again, there's only so many things that you can predict in life, like the way your kids will treat you, or if they're take advantage of you, or naming a couple. Some people do name like co-executors, and I strongly advise one of my friends not to do that because of his own experience as being co-executor with his sister, who he hates. It just, it gets all caught up in a legal battle. And then if you get stuck in a rut, who has to resolve it? Right? The courts. And that costs a lot of money.
Yeah. I think, not to keep beating the dead horse, but it's like, I think my thing is people that wait. That's my, like, when you ask, like, what are the mistakes that people make? The mistake is waiting. People are like that thing of like, well, I'm going to do it when I hit this point in time, or I'm going to do it when my kids, or when I have kids. I mean, we get a lot of clients that are like, oh, our kids are going to, they're pregnant and the kids are coming, or the first child, and they're like, should we wait? And it's like, no, do it now. Because now is when you don't have a screaming potato, like occupying 20 hours of your day. Like,
screaming potato.
I was thinking more like a little sack, like a 5-pound sack of potatoes, or a 7.5-pound sack.
Well, in North Dakota, some of the potatoes are pretty big.
They are.
That's funny.
But yeah, it's like, don't wait, right? It's like and it is sort of that piece of like stepping up. A basic will is better than nothing. A basic will can name who is the guardian of your kids. It establishes who your heirs are. It saves money in probate because it simplifies that process. This next step up is a living trust where you can then avoid probate. So it's like, but don't wait. That's the part. Like, don't think that you need to sort of take a mini class on trust and estates before you don't need to pre-know it. Like, sort of like yeah.
And nor do we don't need your bank account numbers, nor do we want them. I don't want those. But a lot of folks also think, I mean, I just was looking at an intake form at, an estate planning firm out there, and it was requesting all of this account numbers and this and that, and maybe for, depending on the situation, but we don't need that information, and you don't have to prepare that or send that sensitive information to us either. And the worksheet that we worked really hard on it's like the anti-intake form, which is super intimidating. Ours is built to be conversational. It gives you, nuts and bolts information as if you're talking to us on my back porch, right? Sipping an iced tea Friday evening in Wisconsin. Did you hear that? Wisconsin. So, but we really have worked so hard because the estate planning process is so anxiety provoking. It's such an awful topic. I mean, who wants to talk about it? But it's so important. And so, yeah, I think Nathan, you said once, it really stuck with me when somebody said, is now the right time or should I wait? And you responded with, like any time is the right time. We're ready when you are. So, just do it. Go for
One
it.
of the challenges that I see families try to navigate in some cases, and I'm sure you've run into this, is having to do with asset liquidity. So obviously, if I've got $10, I want to split it between 4 kids. That's $2.50 a kid, and that's easy. But if I have $10 and a house, and one of the kids wants to live in the house, or I have a business and 2 of the kids want to stay in the business and 2 of them don't, and we need to somewhat equitably divide an estate. Obviously, this is very complex and context is required, but maybe describe some of the questions that you might ask or some of the important things to consider as you're counseling one of your clients through a situation where there's a big illiquid asset and a desire for equitable bequest.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it depends, right? Of course it depends, but it does. A friend of mine, like, she was going to leave the house to her son and then leave sort of the retirement accounts to the other sons. And then we sort of explained, like, the way that we can actually do it is sort of put language in that sort of says, that instead of the weird part, this is the weird part with these documents, is that if you sort of dial down on the specifics, you run the risk that it will have unintended consequences a couple of decades down the line. Maybe you don't have, like, if you have a house worth, $300,000, and then you have $600,000 in your bank account, you have 3 sons, that works great because you're like, son A gets the house and sons B and C split the 600,000. Everybody gets 300,000. But maybe the house ends up being worth $1 million. And then the other stuff was just sitting in like a low yield savings account, right? So it's like, it really just depends on the details. And then, in her circumstance, that son that really wanted the house, he and his wife moved to Portland. And so they don't want the house anymore. So I think it really, by and large, we really end up advising people in most circumstances to just sort of trust their executor. Because the thing is that, that's really the issue. These are sort of terribly weird documents because you try to think through all these scenarios. And so you can imagine these sort of very specific scenarios, but yet you don't know which one of them will end up being true. And
Not to mention, go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, no. Sorry. Just to sort of that idea that, like, that's what the executor is there for, that the executor and the way that we draft our documents is to sort of presume that, like, the executor will gather the beneficiaries. So if you split everything between your 3 kids, if the house is worth $1 million and there's only $100,000 in the bank, if the 3 kids can work out a way to share it, then great. But if they can't, then it has to be sold and split. So it's sort of, and we have it set up, sort of we have that sort of like eBay function set up into our documents too, where it's like, if there's, like, say there's the tacky dog painting right? Like the dog's playing poker, but it's an original or something, right? And it's worth a lot of money, but there's a lot of money. Like the kids can like essentially bid on it to be like, well, I want the dog painting. And then the other kid's like, well, I want it. Maybe actually it isn't even an original. Maybe it's just like a $5 reproduction, but it's like dad's dogs playing poker painting and everybody wants it. And they essentially then get to bid on it. Maybe they end up bidding up to like $50,000. And so then that becomes the value of the painting and it sort of offsets against their share. And it's not like we kick the can down intentionally, but the weird part, and this is that thing, it's like the more detail you try to put, it's like, are you really sure that your kids really want to take over your family business? Like if they do, that's great. But I think, yeah, do they?
Sounds like some of the best estate planning you can do is cultivating healthy, open communication amongst your family and building in the trust that is required for an ultimate equitable distribution.
Well, but that's the thing. I think one thing that I've observed, a family that I know very, very closely, actually very close friends of ours, but they have family meetings every year, once or twice a year.
I think
And
that's so brilliant.
it is because there is a significant estate involved, but everybody is involved, is welcome, including the in-laws. And so everybody gets to be part of this meeting that everybody groans about, and we got to, they got to do it again. And I hear about that, but they haven't, it's open communication. So everybody knows what's there, what's bubbling, maybe what kind of investments are happening. But it is such a gift to this family because they're having conversations that are going to prevent fights in the future. And there always will be, right? There's always going to be like, well, I think they said this, but everybody was there. And then you have what? You have 5 witnesses who said, well, no, I'm pretty sure that dad said this. So I think really keeping open communication and really talking about these things with your family members, depending, again, it depends on the situation. Sometimes some of your private information you don't want to share with family members that might be a little bit more contentious, right? But just be open and talk to your family members about it. So, I mean, I even, for Memorial Day, we have a tradition of going to my husband's family's graveyards, to go see the ancestors. And his dad tells us the story of, okay, this is great grandpa Thompson who came to Wisconsin and stuck the thing in the ground, Homestead Act, but tells us the whole story. And as we were there, my 10-year-old says to me, well, Mom, are you going to be buried in the Catholic cemetery because you're not Catholic? I said, I don't know. I don't know if that's allowed, but I don't want to be buried anyway. I want to be cremated. So we've normalized this conversation where, growing up for me, I couldn't even say the D word. But again, it really comes down to, I think, having conversations that make it sound like these are just in case plans. And I want to talk to you about it so you all know.
I think there's definitely people listening to this who think, holy cow, this is an amazing idea. Are there any resources or anything that you can point toward, whether it's a book or a paradigm or something that we can add it in the show notes, by the way? So this will be apmsuccess.com/105. Anything that comes to mind immediately?
Yes, actually. Oh my gosh, I have so many. It's like face lighting up.
Yes.
Face lighting up.
YouTube, check out the YouTube channel.
Yay! So this is the nurse Notesong coming out because like the healthcare directive has been my baby. Only because it's such an important document. All of these are important documents, but just being a nurse, having been in that backup healthcare agent role for my dad when he passed away, which was awful. But even in his passing, I learned so much from that experience and how he planned for that. But I've got great resources for you and I'll send you links, but they're conversation starters is what it's really all about, because a lot of people also have parents that don't have this set up. And so, how do you say to your parent, like, you figured out what you're going to do with your stuff? And it's just such an uncomfortable topic. Like, who wants to bring it up? But I will send you all sorts of resources.
Nathan, anything you would add?
No. I did it. I had a very simple answer.
You did, but yeah, no.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
I want to, so two more questions, then we can wrap this up. I'm curious from and I don't know if this is like way too hypothetical, just you could stop me in my tracks, but from a proposed legislation standpoint and household exemption and portability, um, right now it's, you can pass 12 million bucks to your kids, 12 million plus without any federal estate tax implications. I've heard talks that might come way, way, way down, which is a big deal. I remember this was again right at the beginning of my career, the year that George Steinbrenner died. It was 2010, I think, or 2000. It was like the one year where there was no cap, and so the entire Yankees passed to whatever to the heirs without federal income tax on the value of the franchise, which was a funny little idiosyncratic circumstance historically. But we could easily go from a place where, well, not many people that I know have $12 million sitting around to a lot of people that I know have $1 million. Many clients who are professionals and working for a few years quickly accumulate assets. And so planning around this ceiling all of a sudden becomes perhaps more urgent. So can you describe a little bit about the way that you think about that, or would encourage others to think about that if that's like a thing on the horizon?
It's weird. This is one of those pieces where I feel like, how do I want to put it? We don't know what's going to happen. And so to sort of try to game the system ahead of time feels to me, it's fun. I get that we like to talk about it, but I don't know.
There's nothing that people should be doing right now is what you're saying.
No, well, and the thing is, I guess my worry again is that this will be another thing where I'm like, I'm not going to do my estate plan yet because there's uncertainty about the estate plan. And that's my real worry. Is like, I guess that's the thing that I feel like is really, it's what worries me about these conversations, because I think if there's a dramatic shift in sort of the caps and stuff, there will be a response, but let's not try to sort of build that in yet. And certainly I don't want people to wait on it because they're worried that might change. I think, again, especially if you have kids, whether or not nobody wants to pay extra taxes, right? But it's not the end of the world. Like, better to get your plan set up and then forget to update it after this changes. And maybe there's some income tax that gets pulled up before your kids' trusts get set up. But the other mechanism is that all this money goes to your kids, and then when they're 18, they get all of it because you didn't get around to setting up your trusts, and then your kids blow it all on hookers and booze, right? It's like, that's like in the environment, it's like there's a risk. There's risks everywhere, and I think the bigger risk to me is still that people just don't get it done. That's the biggest one.
And we can point to celebrities, right? All of their estate planning or lack of is in the news. Prince, right? He died in 2016. So 5 years ago, his estate plan is not wrapped up yet because he didn't even have a basic will. And they're looking at $7 to $8 million of legal fees. And there's still somebody in Denver, the last I heard, who's in prison, who said he's the love child of Prince and therefore should be. Oh yeah, I keep up with this. But or the CEO of Zappos, he didn't have, and his dad and brother, they're caught up in just trying to be established as financial agents to get access to his accounts. Chadwick Boseman, I think I mentioned that on our talk, Justin, but his wife has to pay up to $45,000 in probate fees in California to establish that she's his rightful heir. It's just, and this is a really good segue back to, what we talked about before, is that just don't wait, just do it. But also with us, we're, Nathan and I are kind of old fashioned too. We're up on the technology, but we love more than anything talking to people, and we want to, talk by phone. I get so excited, and we've lately gotten a rush of prospective clients who've written to us and said, "Hi, I just want to introduce myself." And isn't that great?
Yeah,
I know.
I love it.
I do too, and I miss that the most. Is that we don't get to meet people in person. But this is the next best thing. And thanks to the pandemic, everybody's kind of used to virtual chat. So when I meet people, it's always like, "Oh my gosh, hi." So that's what we want. Give us a call, and we'll help you figure out what you need.
I want to wrap it up. And I thank both of you for your time and expertise for the last few weeks sharing with our APM Success audience. I'm curious if there are any anecdotes or stories or things that you've encountered, or because in the space where you interact, and this is similar to my job, it's a very intimate space with the clients that you serve, and being able to see significant vulnerability, significant moments of like emotional, circumstance or love or hatred, or just, there's a lot that you as a total stranger get to witness about a person that most of their friends probably, I mean, in some cases, literally nobody else knows or can see. So in some kind of way, without, violating your,
I was gonna say like, are
without
you gonna
violating
like,
confidence, can you maybe just give us a little flavor for some, as attorneys, an instance that stands out to you where you kind of got to see something really special with a client that just sort of left a mark on you?
I can think of one, but can you think of one, Nathan?
I mean, I think
I
nothing.
can think of several. I don't know.
Well, Notesong, that's the thing. Notesong is the one that really I think is better at this. I mean, for me, what I come back to are the people that are really excited, that sort of say like, wow, I mean, honestly, one of our clients said that didn't suck. And that has become like my like motto for our organization, is like, that didn't suck. So, I mean, people, when people get it done, it's again, that weird thing. It's like, everybody knows that you need a will, right? It's just like, everybody knows that, like, and that's the weird thing is like, I mean, it's like, we don't need to educate people. Like, you need a will. It's like, we just need to tell you, like, get it done. Like, that's the part. And so when people do get it done, they get really excited, which is really neat to share, because when I was doing lending, and it's like or real estate work, it's like, you just like, wow, you have a 30-year debt, all this stuff. But people get really excited when they have it done, and they really like that whole notion of like peace of mind. It's real. Like, there's a sense of accomplishment. I think it actually helps. So my husband is a marriage and family therapist, but in a weird way, like, I think I certainly don't do what he does or as much good as he does, but I think this helps a lot of marriages, because usually there's one spouse that is like, we need to get this done. And then there's the other spouse that's like, oh, I just don't. And so I think we get to help people's families on so many levels, like a peace of mind way, and like reducing friction and getting things checked off. But do I have, well, if I had a specific thing, I wouldn't share it. but this does, I mean, it really is sort of like the 1,000 points of light thing, where it's been hugely rewarding to actually be able to help people like this.
Well, and I think, I don't know, it's weird. People are shocked when they hear that I'm a nurse that went to law school, right? They seem to be complete opposites, but thoughtful wills has become something that I think has really brought both of those careers together. And I miss nursing. I miss bedside nursing more than anything. And so I get to, as a production guru of our law firm, I get in touch with clients and say, oh my gosh, I love the final wishes that you wrote. That was so thoughtful. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is when people are really thoughtful about the process and deciding who they're putting their life's hand, putting their hands, their life into these people's hands. It's my way of being able to give TLC. It's my bedside care in our law firm. So yeah. And we get to help get those wishes perfect.
It's a beautiful thing, and something that my wife and I remember sitting around the table with our our 4-month-old at the time, who was like, was like, all right, I guess it's time. We gotta get the guardian, so we might as well do the whole thing. And going through this, like, so under what circumstances, Justin, do you want me to pull the plug, or whatever the sort of, and it was to soberly sit with that question. It's jarring, I'll be honest. And I've helped people kind of through this tangentially as a financial planner, but to stare it in the face, it's jarring. So I'm grateful for the valuable service that you provide and the way that you make it as easy as possible. And I thank you for your time today on APM Success.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much, Justin.
If you liked what you heard this week, head on over to apmsuccess.com, where you can find more content and free resources to help you build a successful career in anesthesia and pain management. If you wanted to leave a review in iTunes, I'd also really appreciate it. Thanks for using some of your valuable time to join me today on APM Success.